Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garrett Price.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going well. We are going to wrap up our wide receiver rookie breakdowns over these next two episodes. So we got 12 more receivers to do. We'll have for the Nerd Herd show, we're going to do a couple players we didn't hit on this episode. And there's a running back
next week's Nerd Herd show.
Yeah. So we'll get some players on there that you won't hear in the free show, but some guys that you missed. Last year we had a guy like Tyrone Tracy made that show, and I liked him a lot. We talked him up, and it worked out pretty good.
Yep.
So and there's a running back. What's his name?
Lan Larison. I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, Lan Larison. You said his name out, but hey, we got to do the hit. This guy's making the guys we missed episode. And I was like, oh, who is he? And I watched like his highlight tape. I was like, oh yeah, I got to watch. We got to talk about him.
He sounds like Swedish or something. What is that name?
Jared was like, is that a creative player? But all you got to do is go watch his highlight tape, and you're like, it's at least worth breaking down the all 22 because dude put up number 2,300 yards in his final season between rushing and receiving. Like 800 of that was receiving.
What division are we in there?
So he played for UC Davis. So it's still technically Division I, but
Okay.
subdivision.
He's got really good
however
hands.
that works.
Yep.
He's got really good. That's the most intriguing part. Like he's interesting as a runner, sure, but like it's the receiving aspect of his game that has me going like, ooh.
Yeah, and shout out to the Dynasty Nerds film crew, Matt Cooper and team. You know,
Cutting them last
it was
minute.
awesome because we were like, hey, he's like, oh, I see you guys are doing Kyle Williams next week. Got like 5 games of Kyle Williams in there for us to watch tape this week. We said we wanted Lan Larison in there. Got some Lan Larison tape in there as well.
Corey Krosky Merritt will be in that episode. He's got some of that for us.
Yeah, so shout out to them. And so we'll get some of those guys in there. But we're going to wrap up the receivers. Next week, we're going to do the 2 episodes on tight ends. After that's all said and done, we're going to do a pre-NFL draft mock draft, which is kind of like a ranking episode. Just we each take a guy there. And then obviously post-NFL draft, the same day on that Sunday morning, we record a show that Sunday and get it out that Sunday for everybody. We do a post-NFL mock draft. And I don't know how you guys feel. For me, like I need it because I've never seen... Out of 11 years of doing this and really breaking down tape, I haven't had a class this close in a long time. Like, for example, these receivers we're going to break down. If you tuned in to last week's episodes, you would know that was a really big turd fest, right? That was Oscar the Grouch's house is what it was. It was a big pile of trash.
Trash-tastic.
But this class, like these next 2 episodes really makes up for it because there's a lot of guys we're going to talk about here that are on my board that I like. And I think I came away overall with the receiver class is there's a couple guys here I feel really good about. I think to be wide receiver ones. I know we started the very first guy we did was Ted McMillan. I said, oh, he's probably going to be lower on my board. Like, and if he's the best receiver in his class, I see guys passing him up. I was wrong. He's up there. He's my wide receiver 3 overall. If you want to argue he's your wide receiver, like if you took Travis Hunter out and you want to argue Tet's your wide receiver 1, I'll listen to it. At this
close
point.
enough for me that
Close enough for me.
Agreed. Yeah, there's not a big fight there.
No. So I came away like there's 3 guys that I think are like true wide receiver, like one's upside that I like. And then there's a nice group of 5 or 6 guys, and a lot of guys we're going to talk about today, actually, that I think could end up being a team's wide receiver 1. I doubt it, but they could be. But I think this class is at least full. I think there's about 9 guys I think are at least NFL starters, but wide receiver 2s, maybe 3s. But I'm good with that too, because if you get on the field, right, in the right offense, then you can become fantasy relevant. I do see a path for these guys to be fantasy football relevant. So when we break down tape, that's all we're looking for, right? Like their skill set, how does it translate? How does it turn into dynasty upside? You know, if you listen to the running back episodes, there's a lot of guys we liked. We're like, we don't know if they're going to be dynasty relevant. You know, guys like Manungai, you know, like nice running back. Davian Martinez, really nice running back. Will he be fantasy relevant? Let's find out. So I'm excited for the NFL draft because when I put out my rankings after watching these tight ends next week, I'm going to put them out. I have them in tiers. And my 4th tier is massive. And I have a guy we're going to talk about like Jaylen Noel at the top of that tier. And at the bottom of that tier is like Devin Neal, right? And there's like probably like 10 guys at least in between. And the difference between them is a hair, right? Like they're so close. So I'm really excited for the NFL draft this year. Like, because how I started the show was saying I've never seen a class that's so close. Where now I want to see draft capital and landing spot to really kind of define my rankings overall.
It is interesting because for me, the first round is going to be really solid, especially in tight end premium. First round is going to be really solid prospects. But then I'm not sure if like the very beginning of the second is going to be much different than the players I feel about at the very end of the second, even maybe into the early third, because there's so much depth. But are they special enough to really differentiate themselves? And I don't think so.
That's going to be the real interesting part, is these guys that we value as wide receiver twos. Where did they fall in place with some of the running backs and especially the tight ends, like you were saying? Where do they fall in place? Because I could see, I feel like, you know, a lot of these guys that we looked at, and we're probably going to talk about today here, they feel like early second round draft picks, but with the depth here in other positions, they might end up being late second round draft picks, and like you said, early thirds, and that feels like a steal. You know what I mean? Just because they're getting pushed down. So at some point, like even the guys that we don't love as far as super high upside, they're very solid players, and they become really good value just because the depth at other positions in this draft might kind of push them down. It's going to be very interesting.
A lot of starters. I do see a lot of NFL starters in this class. It's nice. And I'm with you. I think I have it, like looking at my overall rankings right now, and I haven't done tight ends yet, but I think when I get the tight ends in there, there's going to be, I feel really good about probably pick 1-1 to probably about pick 2-3. Like that group right there, I'll probably feel like, okay, those are guys I want. You know, the top of the draft will be these are guys I need, right? Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Trevion Henderson, and Martin Hampton. Yeah. You know, guys I need. Guys I want, Emeka Egbuka, Tet McMillan, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Junkins. You know, and I'm sure the tight ends are going to jump in there. Yeah, Cam Scatterby were guys that I really want. And then it'd be guys, a very large share of, I like these guys.
But you know when you get into drafts, it's not going to be that cut and dry. Those guys that you like are still going to start sliding. Sure. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be guys that kind of jump in.
Get slightly better draft capital than you expect, or an amazing landing spot with nobody there. And then even going back to the quarterbacks could throw a huge wrench in this. What if someone does fall in love with Milroe and drafts him in the first round?
He got invited to the combine.
He got the draft, yeah. You know, like
kudos to him for going. He must have he has to know something, right? Somebody's had to tell him something.
You would think. I mean, even we've seen guys go before and not be drafted.
I feel like nowadays it's like they have the big first round. They march guys out with a second, whole outfit for the second day, and that's not as frowned upon as it used to be. You know what I mean? I think they do a better job.
Malik Willis and Levis both fell to day two, despite being
they do a better job in that green room of not like showing the picture of the guy just sweating bullets and like looking all just
his
girlfriend
what I mean? Calling
Rodgers.
Right, exactly. So I feel like it's less of an embarrassment nowadays to maybe miss that.
The weird part though is they only invited 13 guys or something.
That's the thing.
That's the really weird part.
That's what's weird.
Low, huh?
Yeah. No, what I heard was, which is weird, is they wanted to change that. They didn't want guys waiting forever in the green room, and they wanted guys that they thought were going to be like top 15 picks, somewhere around there, top 18, in that range. So they limited the number of players they invited because they didn't want to have that.
Which makes
really me think like Milroe may be the only guy there on day two. But again, I don't think he would go if he had a day two grade from somebody.
It'll be interesting. But something like that happens, or one of these tight ends other than Loveland and Warren go in the first round, and then all of a sudden they're catapulting up our board, or somebody they're
both Colston and Loveland are Colston
Loveland
and Warren
and Warren
Tyler Warren.
They're both going in the first round.
Right. No, I'm saying somebody else goes in the first as well on top of them at tight end. Mason Taylor, Elijah Roro, sneak in there, and we're like, holy crap! Now where do we draft these guys? Or or somebody we love falls, and you're like, shoot, I had an early second round grade on this guy, but he went at the end of the third. These kinds of things happen. So
I think the quarterbacks are going to be the really thing that kind of shakes us up. Like, where does Shadur Sanders go? Yep. What team? Where does Jackson Dart go? Does he has to go in the first round for me?
We're thinking so. We think he will.
No, for me to.
Oh, for you to be really interested.
fantasy.
I'm interested regardless, but for him to be like a first round rookie,
Sure,
I have him because right now
I'm not taking a
right
second round rookie in
12.
the first round.
Exactly. I'm way less interested. So, and then we're like, where does Will Howard end up? Where does Jalen Milroe end up? Where does Quinn Ewers end up? Is there a path for them to like get reps at quarterback? Like, I'm interested. I want to buy that window of opportunity. So we'll talk about all that in the next 2 weeks. Let's dive into these receivers. Let's wrap this up. Let's put a bow on it. And where are we starting off? Matthew.
We're starting off at D. Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State wide receiver.
Double E.
6 foot 7 and 6 foot 0 and 7/8 inches.
6'7". Cow.
202 pounds, 9 5/8 inch hands. He's 22 years old. He'll be 23 in October. At his pro day, right? He didn't run at the combine. At the pro day, he ran a 4.45 with a 1.5 10-yard split. He had a 4.12 20-yard shuttle and a 38-inch vertical. Last year at Ohio State in 16 games, he had 81 receptions, 1,011 yards, and 10 touchdowns, 8 rushing attempts, 33 yards. He did all that and 106 targets with only 5 drops, 6% drop rate.
Yeah, give those hand size. That's wise.
Huh?
9 5/8 hands.
I did.
Yeah,
9
that's why he's
5/8.
dropping.
Yep.
He's got good hands.
He does.
Yeah, Emeka ended up being my number 2 overall receiver ahead of Tet. And before anybody says, oh, it's because he went to Ohio State, that's not it. And the reason he got there is because I feel like Emeka is the safest wide receiver of any receiver we're going to talk about. We're like Travis, like he's got the highest upside by a ton. He's in a tier by himself, but like, how is he going to be used? We don't know 100% yet. So that's somewhat unsafe. Tet McMillan, will he be pressed at the line? How is he going to be? How is he going to be there? There's a lot of upside, but like Emeka, where he's not like great at everything, he's above average across the board. Like everything he does, man, this guy is smoother than like a politician apologizing. Like he is just great at everything you want him to see him do. Okay, okay, great is the wrong word to say he's not great at anything. He's above average at everything.
Yep. He's good. Yeah, he's good at everything, and he's really good at a few things.
Yeah,
right?
His routes are really nice. He's very fluid. He can get the coverage off balance. He's good using his hands. He'll get his hands up late at times as well, which is really nice. His routes are absolutely fantastic. He tracks the ball really well. He'll carve up defenders, keep on their his tempo. Will keep him off balance there. His footwork is really nice. Everything he does is like pro ready. Like
super efficient in all of his movements, right?
Even his catches on the sideline, he was getting both feet in. Like he would double tap his feet down, showing that like he's pro ready. So with the ball in his hands, same thing. Not overly elusive, but has a really good stiff arm, has really good size. You know, he's 6'1", over 200 pounds. Like I don't know why I always thought, but like I never thought like Emeka was a bigger receiver.
He's got very good size.
He's got good size. It's just
fantastic
that
size.
He's got a monster standing next to him, so it makes him look normal. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, it was Marvin Harrison for a while, and now it's Jeremiah Smith. And yeah,
These guys are like 6'4".
I mean, he's not overly explosive. You know, he doesn't have the loosest hips.
I think that's the thing with him. He's not super explosive out of breaks, but he's savvy as hell and is always open.
He's very smart.
So he knows how to get open. He knows how to work his routes, even though he might not be the most explosive guy laterally or kind of in and out of breaks.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me, he reminded me a lot of his Ohio State teammate, Jackson Smith and Jigba, another player where you didn't necessarily have that one thing that you're like, oh my gosh, that is special, but just doesn't do anything wrong. You know, he's coming from a situation where these guys are coached up. Mm-hmm. They tend to translate really well to the NFL. And I think it's his body control for me he's just always, he's able to contort his body when he needs to. He's able to make the necessary movements to go up and get the football. You mentioned his getting his feet in. Yep. Like he's just always under control. And I think that's a really important trait for a wide receiver to have. We've talked about it before. That kind of combined with a few other things that we kind of all put together as like the ball skills aspect of it. But like, that's one of the biggest aspects in all of it is just how in control are you? Are you able to make the necessary movements at the drop of a dime to make a play happen? And he can do that at any point.
And he's smart too. Like he'll move a defensive back, like with he'll have sudden, he'll He'll move his head suddenly, his shoulders. He does these little things to give himself just enough extra space to put himself in position, show his numbers to the quarterback.
That's the savviness that I'm talking about there. Yeah.
Later hands.
I call it, you call it savvy. I call it football smart.
Right.
Yeah, same thing.
It's all the same thing.
He does those little things to really put himself in a good position for success, which again, why I have him as number 2 is I think safe is like, he's the guy that week in, week out, I could see 8 catches, 75 yards. Week in, week out.
No doubt in my mind that he's that type of guy in the NFL. The one thing I guess we should probably discuss is where's he going to play? He's a guy that went from like about 50% in 2021 playing in the slot and playing out wide to 81%, and it kind of just climbed steadily up into 2024 to that 81% in the slot. Where do you guys see him in the NFL? Because I think he's got the movement skills to kind of do anything.
I think that's the one special thing about Emeka Egbuka is almost every receiver in this class is limited to a specific role. A couple of them, you could say they might be able to do 2 roles.
Yeah.
He's the unicorn in this sense where like you could use, like a team could view him. One team could view him as an X. One team could view him as a Z. One team could view him as a slot receiver, a Z guy. Like he could be used in a lot of different areas and still be successful. His release is good enough that he can handle press coverage, so you're not worried about him on the outside. He's got the size needed to be an X. Like he just, what does your team need? Okay, I'll fill that role and be that guy. And you saw that at Ohio State. He was a very willing teammate to just do whatever. His numbers actually dipped this year. And you would think losing a Marvin Harrison Jr., his numbers should have gone up, right? And like that should be a red flag. No, he had a generational talent in Jeremiah Smith, and he said, okay, let's let him be the focal point of the offense. I'll run off defenders at times. I'll do the blocking downfield. I'll do those things. So that's the thing for him that is such a nice plus is some of these other guys you'll talk about the attitudes or the, whatever. Like this is a guy without that arrogance. He's a guy without that, I want it. It's all about me. Like, he's going to be a breath of fresh air in whatever locker room he goes into, and he's going to be an asset in whatever that coach asks him to do.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Garrett, here. I think he can play anywhere on the field, which is another attribute to him that makes him a really valuable dynasty receiver because he can line up anywhere. And you mentioned, like, he played this year across a generational talent. And there's a lot of players we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, like the word generational silly a lot of times.
I'm fine saying it with
Jeremiah Smith is a true generational talent. I think when it's all said and done, he'll probably be the best wide receiver I've ever seen come out of college, like him and Calvin Johnson. Probably the 2 best receivers I've ever seen come out of a draft. I think if he was in the draft this year, there's an argument he'd go number 1 overall, Jeremiah Smith, as a freshman. But going back to Emeka Egbuka is like, look what he's done every single year at Ohio State. He came back this year because he came out last year and he still would have had a fine grade on him, but came back this year because he wanted to end up winning a national championship. Mm-hmm. But look what he did year in and year out, going over 1,000 yards with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate around him, having Marvin Harrison Jr. around him, having
Jackson Smith and
Jigba, having Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. All those guys are around him, and he just came in and got it done week in and week out and was always reliable. And from the moment, and again, going to Ohio State, the one thing I will say about those players is the only thing that's different for me when I watch them is I've had the privilege of watching those guys every snap because I watch every Ohio State game. I'll never grade a player higher because they're in Ohio State, but I do see more of them just because the way it all works out. And Emeka Egbuka, literally since the moment he stepped on campus, was always like a very reliable receiver. And he just got a little better and a little better and a little better every single year, and always trustworthy, never worried about going to him with the football. So I think, again, as my number 2 receiver I would like to have a decent amount of shares. I think he's a great, like, mid to back end first round pick in your rookie draft. If you need a receiver, he's going to slide right in there. And I think what's nice about him is I can see him easily being like a wide receiver 2 year in, year out. Wouldn't surprise me if he turned in like a couple of those like Terry McLaurin year, like obviously he had a wide receiver 1. Yeah, a couple spike years where he's in a right situation, works up to being the number 1 with the right quarterback. He could be a wide receiver 1, but the perfect wide receiver you want to grab at the back end of your first or middle of first, where he's like a mid-range wide receiver 2 year in, year out for the next 10 years, and you can slide him in your wide receiver 3 slot, and that's a championship caliber player. But worst case, he's your wide receiver 2. Really nice player. Excited. I hope I get some shares of Emeka Egbuka.
Agreed, man. I'm with you there. And I feel real similar, so I'm not going to just beat that dead horse.
Last thing I'll say, my actual score, I don't think I gave it, 76.73. Not an outrageous score for a wide receiver 2 in the class. There are definitely years. I mean, last year my wide receiver 2s and 3s were 78s and 79s, I think.
Really good class.
It was a really good class. So I don't want to, as good as he is, and I think deserving of being the number 2 or maybe for some people number 3 wide receiver, him and Tet are like really close on my scores. So I'd be fine either one ahead of the other one. I think they're close. Emeka, I think safer. Tet has a little bit higher ceiling. Depends what you want, really, I think, in your drafts.
Yep.
But all of that being said, I do think if you're looking for somebody where you're like, hey, I need to not waste this pick, Egbuka's your guy.
Yep. No
Even some running backs. If you want someone safety, if you want somebody safe, he's the pick. And
Yep.
so he did great out and the nerd score wise. Is your number 2 wide receiver too?
Nerd score number 2 wide receiver wise. The one thing I haven't said about him yet that I kind of had a little bit, the workman-like mentality, the not freakish athletic ability, but just does all the things right, does remind me of a guy like an Amon-Ra where he'll hit you hard. He'll catch tough passes. He'll go over the middle. He's not going to beat you with elite speed.
That's probably a good ceiling comp for him.
I think that's a ceiling.
St. Brown.
You know, I don't know if he'll reach it, but that's a ceiling.
That's a high.
It's a very high ceiling.
It's a very high ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has the skills to become a best friend to a quarterback, and that's what it takes to be an Amon-Ra St. Brown is to really gain the trust of a QB quickly, and that way you get targeted a lot.
Yeah,
So.
10 catches, 120 yards. It's there. I'll have a lot of shares. So I bet a lot of people come away with and that's what's weird too, because like you see everybody else's rankings where it's like Tet's 1. And I understand a lot of people have Travis Hunter off their board as a receiver because they don't know yet. But then like everybody has like Luther Burden and Matthew Golden as their like 2, 3. For the most part, I've seen them like, oh man, like my eyes are just completely different because I don't see that. Who's next on the list?
Next up is Xavier Restrepo. Maybe
or Restrepo.
Restrepo. I tomato.
You said ahead of time you were going to mess it up.
I already told you I was going to mess that one up. It just does not roll off my tongue. It doesn't read
Xavier
correctly.
Restrepo slow.
Restrepo slow. He is Miami wide receiver, 5'9" and 7/8 inches tall, high off the ground. He's got good pad level. 209 pounds.
That's a tear that day.
9 1/8 inch hand.
Starting point.
He's 22 years old. He's going to be 23 at the end of this month. Right before the draft, actually. He didn't run any of the drills. He did bench press 17 times, show off his strength a little bit. Last year at Miami, he had 69 receptions, 1,127 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. He did that on 95 targets. He only had 2 drops for a 3% drop rate. And yards after the catch, 503, so pretty good.
You give his pro day 40?
I didn't know it, so I didn't.
Oh, I have it here.
Oh, it was like 484 or something.
486.
486. Tell the story.
Okay.
I think you mentioned it last week. But
I
say
did,
it again.
but just in case you missed his pro day story. He came out and said, he went on to, he's like, I usually don't dress stuff like this, but I had to say this because everybody's talking about it. Right before I was going to run my 40 as they're training, I felt my hamstring tighten up, and I probably shouldn't have run, but I'm a competitor at heart, so I ran anyways. And I will say, watching his tape, he's not a 4.86 guy.
Correct.
No.
Definitely
But he's also not a 4.4 guy.
No.
Oh, he's a high.
He's 4.6s.
I call him Restrepo slow in jest. He's not slow, but he is not fast. Correct?
No. He's fast enough.
So going into this, I was a little uncertain on how I was going to feel about him. Seeing that 40, knowing that he's primarily going to be a slot. Traditionally, your slot players do have good speed, do have some good quickness, or they are bigger players that are going to play more of that power slot. And he's not either one of those things. So I was like, how is this going to work? And one of the first plays I watched was him against Florida. And there was a play where he got open. He's running across the middle of the defense, a nice slant route. And he gets targeted by Cam Ward, but it's behind him.
Oh, yeah. I know this play.
And
in my brain.
He literally had to stop. He was going full speed. Yep. He had to stop and basically jump backwards.
Lunge, jump. Backwards.
And just snagged it. And that moment right there, I was like, wonder how many drops this guy has. So I literally went to PFF right away because I was like, that's not an easy catch that a lot of players can make.
Correct. Yeah.
So I went and I saw the 2 drops that you mentioned in the intro for 3% drop rate. That's one of the lowest percentages in the entire class. Very, very, very reliable hands. Now, he's 5'10", so he's not going to have the wingspan to make some of the crazy acrobatic catches that some of these other guys are going to. But I would say as far as steady, sure-handed, I don't know that there's somebody in the class that is better in that aspect. He's definitely quicker than fast. Obviously, we've mentioned that. But he does get a surprising amount of decent separation despite not being the fastest player overall. You look at his contested catches. He had only 13 contested catches on, 95 routes. I would have thought there would have been a lot more because of his speed. Only 13, but he did well in those. He's a physical player. Had 8 receptions on those 13 catches. So overall, when I watched his tape, yes, some of the athletic measurables held him back. But when you look at the quality things that you want a wide receiver to do, he does all of those things really, really well. Another guy that's always in control, shows some good physicality, tracks the ball pretty well, got a decent amount after the catch despite not being an amazing athlete. He's just not a burner. He's just not. Right. And he never will be. That's never going to be part of his game. But I came away really impressed. Overall, now, I don't know that I would draft him here. Remember, Nerd Score is simply just how I scored them on tape. But he came away with my 5th highest Nerd Score at the wide receiver position, 74.83. Most years, that's more like my 8th best or 9th best. So it shows kind of where this class is, but he's basically towards the top of a tier of a lot of guys where I kind of want to see what is their draft capital, where did they land, things like that. But if when we talk a lot about the skills that translate, he has a lot of those skills that translate. So yes, there are going to be players with much higher ceilings in this class, but for my money, I just really enjoyed Restrepo's game.
I like it. I think he's super. We talked about Emeka Egbuka being savvy. I think Xavier Restrepo is. I'm just calling him that from now on. I think he might even be more savvy because I think he has more of a limited upside as far as or limited athleticism, and he still manages to get open. So he knows how to do all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned, that he was able to get yards after the catch. He was 11.3 on the average. The ADOT, and he was 16.3 on the yards per reception. So he's getting something almost on every on every reception. If there's a 5-yard difference between those two things, he's getting something pretty regularly. And the QB rating, I think, is an interesting one. When kind of an interesting stat to look at, and PFF has it. The quarterback rating when he's getting targeted is 141.9. So he's a very, very reliable guy. When the ball is getting thrown to him, good things are generally happening. The catch is being made. So he's an interesting guy. I think he just comes with limited upside fantasy wise because he's a slot wide receiver. He's not super fast. He's going to have kind of an uphill battle to gain the trust of a quarterback and really just get a share of the percentage of targets. That's going to be his kind of hurdles, I think. And it has to do with him kind of being limited athletically or not even athletically, just limited in his speed. So we'll see. I'm interested to see where he goes, what kind of offense he lands in, what kind of other players are around him to know how excited I should get about a player like this.
Yeah, he ended up being my wide receiver 12 of the whole class. But again, how close these guys are, it wouldn't surprise. He could jump to wide receiver rate. And speaking of speed, it's funny because the player he reminded me a ton. And this player that I'm going to comp him to, his 40 time at the combine was a 4.77, just to give you a heads up. And the way he runs, and the way he runs his routes, and it reminded me a lot of Jarvis Landry.
Love it.
Is who he reminded me of. And if you remember, Jarvis had a really good, #3-year window there. He's a good wide receiver too, like a really good wide receiver too.
I think he might have been a wide receiver 1.
I think he did his first year in Cleveland, his first or second year in Cleveland. I think
he had 1 year in Miami and 1 year in Cleveland.
Yeah, maybe at the end there. So that's his ceiling to me, that's fantastic ceiling.
Absolutely.
And you said he finds his way to get open. The way he helps the quarterbacks. And what I saw there was like, what I like about Restrepo is because you're right. There's a lot of limitations, but at the same time, as like a dynasty analyst, like I'm trying to find ways for these people to win. Because like I'm not looking for losers. Like, okay, how does he win? How do I put on my board? I try to focus on more positives. I know sometimes we'll do on guys, but that do
because we don't see a path.
I don't see a path. But like I really do try to focus on a path for success, and then rank them in that output. And I really like Restrepo's feet and his footwork. Like that's how he gets off the line well. And I think that's how he finds himself getting open. Like he has really good footwork, and he can make really sharp cuts as well. Like he had some really good, like playing his foot, cut sharp. You see so many of these guys that drift and round their routes, and they're not as refined, And guys like that, when I see that, they're like, okay, this guy knows how to find a way to win, right? Same thing like Jarvis Landry. Like Jarvis Landry didn't find success and make all that money in the NFL because he was the most talented. It's because he worked really hard at it and wanted to win. And it helps when you go to like your best friend's Odell Beckham. Like they have those kind of guys motivate you and get better as well. So when I look at Restrepo, I see a guy like there's a path there. I see a ceiling of like Jarvis Landry, which again, it's not the highest ceiling. Even at Jarvis Landry's peak, right? Like when he did have those 2-year numbers, like his value wasn't that high in the dynasty community.
No, I think everyone kind of had it in the back of their mind that he was going to be a kind of a short window type of guy. So you never got a huge offer if somebody was coming after Jarvis Landry and you had him on your team. But I think the one thing I'll fight you on a little bit is Restrepo. Restrepo. God, it's in my brain now. Restrepo, I don't know that he's quite as tough as nails, as a guy like Jarvis Landry. And that's how I think Jarvis made some of his hay, because he was just always just like, he always seemed angry and you know what I mean? Like aggressive. And,
he's a dog.
He was a dog. And I don't know that I've seen that out of Restrepo.
And I'm not...
Did I get it right that last time?
Restrepo. And again, I don't want to compare him to Jarvis Landry in that manner. Okay. You're right. I agree. I'm not going to argue that either, because I think you're right there. It's just when you watch him run, even like this, the way, like if you had a shadow, like you just watch a shadow of people run, like he runs like Jarvis Landry. Like it's weird because like again, I went back and looked up Jarvis Landry's 40 times too. I was like, I remember him a slow 40. What was it? He ran a 4.77. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. But like their running style is the same. The way they make those sharp cut, like. Same thing. Landry was able to plant his foot, cut, get off the line well, like things like that. I think overall, like, I think notice another thing I thought Landry did really well. I thought Landry had much better catch radius, like outside of his body. I think
he's a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think Restrepo. Yeah, I think he's like 6 foot. I think he's like 5'10". Yeah. Restrepo is. I'll say another negative about him as well is like he is restricted his catch radius. I know you had that one catch against Florida. That's more of an outlier catch than anything else.
He's not going to be able to boss defenders and things like that. That's just not his game. But
he's got short arms.
Two other guys that I kind of thought of that he has some similarities to. I talked to you about Josh Downs, another guy that just might not be a freak athlete, but caught really well over the middle, could do contested catches because they were physical enough. Wes Welker, another guy that I kind of saw that wasn't a freak athlete. He ran in the 4.6s in his 40s, shorter player, but he was savvy and got open.
He was sudden. Welker was sudden.
And that's what Restrepo has. He's definitely not fast, but he is quick. So I don't want it to come across like, oh, here's a generation. Like, no, he's my fifth. Just on Nerd Score, he would probably drop a few down. That's just tape. He'd probably drop a few in my actual rankings. But he shows enough on tape, and he shows the right things on tape that says, if a quarterback sees him and he does enough, he could fall in love with what this guy does, and he could be that steady, another first down, because he's going to have windows that he gets open each and every week.
Restrepo's the kind of guy that if I come away with him, I think Jarvis Landry went in the third round of our rookie drafts as well. Like, if I give him in the third round, I feel good about it. Mm-hmm. It's just like the other receivers, like there's so many of all these other 11 guys I have ahead of him, like there's upside there that I could chase. I think that's higher than Restrepo's. Sure. But overall, nice player.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so moving on to the next wide receiver, we have Jayden Higgins, wide receiver, Iowa State, 6'4" and 1/8 inches, 214 pounds, 9 1/8 inch hands. He's 22 years old. He'll be 23 in December. He ran a 4.47 in the 40-yard dash at the combine, a 1.53 10-yard split. He had a 128-inch broad jump, 39-inch vertical. Last year at Iowa State in 13 games, he had 87 receptions, 1,183 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. He did that on 129 targets and only 2 drops, 2% drop rate. 330 yards after the catch.
Yeah, so I know when because we text as we're watching these guys tape, and I know when Garrett texts, he's like, Jay, like we were talking about these 2 players that we're talking about, like he's fine. I actually came away, and as soon as he came in, I was like, I think I'm higher on Jayden Higgins than you. Where I like him. I mean, again, that 4.47 speed is nice. The 6'7" wingspan is amazing. Please, 9'8" hand, 10'8" broad jump. Yeah, the wingspan is unbelievable.
80 inches wingspan.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
6'7" people. So I mean, he's like a big smooth giant, right? Like he runs his routes for his size pretty smooth.
Just picturing something big smooth giant. It's just
hair.
He uses his size really well. He's got really good ball skills. I thought he tracked the ball really well.
Agreed.
Fades did really well. Had really good focusing. Really safe with the ball to go out there and get him. His body control was nice. For me, Jayden Higgins kind of falls into like, if you like Tet McMillan, you should definitely like Jayden Higgins. Like I think Tet McMillan's a better prospect.
How about if you love Tet McMillan, you'll like Jayden Higgins?
There you go.
The funny thing is, if you look at my nerd scores for them, they're very eerily similar, but it's just like a tick down here, a tick down there, a tick down here. Like,
I mean, they're similar size players. They're
similar skill sets.
Similar skill sets. Obviously, Tet McMillan is better with the ball in his hands, I think, because Higgins doesn't offer a ton there after the catch. They're both really good at. They both have really good ball skills. Tet McMillan's they're just better.
Yep.
So I'm with you there. They're very comparable players. I don't know. Is this guy a Cortland Sutton type of guy who lives in wide receiver 2 land forever?
I feel like I wrote down my comp to him as Cortland Sutton, as remind him. The biggest thing I had a problem with him, which kind of sucks for him, is like he doesn't sink his hips, and like he has no sudden stops and cuts. Like they're not happening. Like for him, like if you watch his tape, for him to stop, like he literally takes
like 3 steps.
Even sometimes you go into his breaks, he takes like 2 to 3. If it's short, like it was just. He could make the quick cut. Sure. But when he gets going, his momentum gets going, it takes him about 2 to 3 steps to stop. And
he's much more of a long speed guy.
He's a linear, upright kind of route runner. He does not sink his hips. And he does occasionally, but he doesn't do it. Occasionally. He doesn't do it often. And he's 6'4". You know what I mean? He's 215 pounds. Like that.
Tough to do.
And he's fast as hell. It's hard to stop that kind of momentum. Like only super special guys can do that kind of stuff.
In the right offense, so he could be a nice player in I mean, think of like again, I'm not going to compare the two because I think DK Metcalf's better, but like the way DK Metcalf won in the NFL, like if Jayden Higgins can find himself in that role like who's the opposite? Like I thought him and Jaylin Noel complemented each other perfectly.
Oh yeah, they're a great duo.
Like what a nice little group of wide receivers they had at Iowa State.
How did Bex not do better?
Yeah, so for me, like in the right offense, he falls in the category like he's in that tier for me. I think he ended up as my wide receiver like 7 somewhere around there, 8, 9. I can't remember. He's in that tier, right? Of guys like with like he's still in the same tier as like Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, like that tier. I'm real interested where his draft capital is because if he went a second round, it wouldn't shock me. I look at him like a 3rd round pick, but I want to see where he gets drafted and what offense. Because in the right offense, if Jayden Higgins can find himself as a number 2 receiver in the offense, I think there is going to be some fantasy value there. Definitely in the red zone. This is a guy who can easily score 8-9 touchdowns every single year in the NFL offense. Real nice player, real reliable player as well. So for me, I came away impressed. Like I liked him.
Yeah.
No, I think he has some upside for sure. I'm with you there, Rich. Is he a Cortland Sutton? Is he a Keon Coleman? I think if you comp him to those 2 guys, like he's kind of maybe a mashup of those 2, but he's got a little bit more like top end speed. So I think you can use him a little bit different. I don't know. He's interesting for sure.
wide receiver 8.
I don't know where he's going to land for me. I think right now I got like a 73 something far as
what I got. 73.7.
I have a 73.57. So he'll be in a crowd of probably 6 or 7 guys that are real close to that same number.
Yep.
And I'll see if he gets drafted in the second round, he might go up a little bit. If he gets drafted in the third round, he might slide a little bit and be kind of towards the end of that, towards the bottom
He's
of that
the
group.
epitome of what I was talking about when I started the show. Of like, these guys are all so close. The NFL draft and landing spot are really going to dictate, because he can go from, like, again, he's my wide receiver 8 in a really deep class of running backs and good tight ends too. So like, he's still down my board a lot too.
Right.
And kind of going back to what we said as well, like, it's a weaker wide receiver class. All these guys are kind of wide receiver 2s. They're all so close. It's like, but you can only talk about what you have, right? This isn't like last year's receiver group. So, but amongst these receivers, like, definitely after last week's shows, you see a guy like Jayden Higgins, you're like, oh, this is a refresher.
Oh yeah, he's definitely, like, most of the guys. Actually, this entire episode, I like to some level. Like,
this episode right here.
This specific episode.
Yes,
not
I agree
tomorrow.
too. I like everybody.
But literally this episode, I have interest in all of the players to some varying level. Like I just mentioned, I have a 73.7 Jayden Higgins that ties another player we're going to be talking about for the 10th and the 11th spot. So definitely not like crazy far down my board. I'm not super far off of you, but I'm just a little bit more hesitant. I did not like his releases off the line. I thought for somebody as big and seemingly strong as he is, he didn't do a great job of kind of separating off of the line there. You mentioned the quickness. I don't think there's a lot of like suddenness to his game, not a lot after the catch, but he does do the contested catch. I have him tied with, so the actual number that I gave, 3 players got a 9 in hands in the class, and it was Tet, Restrepo, and Higgins. So, I mean, he's up there with some of the best hands in the class. So I think he does contest catch well. I would like to see him be a little bit more physical in some of those contested catch opportunities. I think he has it there, and I think that's what's lacking a little bit in his releases as well. I think he could be a little more active using his hands, hand fighting a little bit more. I think he would create a little bit more separation, and that's something that can be learned, which is good too. So I do think that there's some opportunities there because he's not going to naturally separate unless it is a longer route where he can just outstride guys.
He has a hard time stacking DBs like initially off the line.
He does.
That. Yep.
It's why he finds himself in so many contested catch situations.
And it's because of those poor releases. So,
and he's more of a linear fast guy, because when he gets speed. Like, he doesn't have like that second gear where he gets the ball in his hands. He's not, for being a big guy too, like a big fast guy. Like he doesn't wow you after the catch, right? No, like definitely if there's a body like on him, which is usually is like. Yeah. He's not doing a ton. Now, in open space, he's fine because he gets going again, and he's fine.
So I talked about the ADOT versus the yards per reception on the last guy we covered here. His ADOT is 12.1 and his yards per catch is 13.6. So there's just not a lot after the catch. You could see it right there. It's basically he's falling forward since he's so freaking tall. Yep. Like that's it. You know what I mean?
But reliable.
Yeah.
There's definitely things to work with there. I think he's got the tools to work with. The right coaching staff could get a lot out of him. But I wonder who's the guy, like I think the low end, who is the guy from the Giants that was like sort of interesting for a year or two? He was a big contested catch guy.
And he signed that big contract.
Oh, no, not that guy. I know who you're talking about, though. I'll think of it later. He was a guy that we like kind of liked coming out, and he kept like flashing at the end of seasons, like the last 4 games he had this, and like, you know, he was interesting for a bit. I'll go back and look and find it, but I could see if he can't end up doing more than just contested catches. That's my biggest concern is he just a contested catch specialist?
I mean, in
today's NFL, you can't get away with that.
You can't get away with that. He could be a throw it up jump ball type of guy, because I think he's got the hops and all that kind of stuff
absolutely.
Or
that role just doesn't exist.
It just doesn't. It's not like that's not a one. You can't be that one trick pony.
Who's the guy that you loved for the Bills back in like 2005?
That was
big white guy.
05.
I don't know. I was going to say James Hardy, but that's not him. He played for the Bills.
Can't remember who it was.
And that was, I think it might have been might have been earlier than that. I
I
don't
have to
remember.
look because I was doing my. Maybe it's in the book because I was doing my spring cleaning. I tweeted this out too.
Yeah,
if you
you
want to go back
should
and have some fun. Back in the day, because we started our league in like late 2003, I believe, is when we started the original Dynasty League. And I used to
handwrite stuff in notebooks.
I found my notebook where I would write down. I dated it and I wrote down every transaction we had.
Yeah, that was pretty good bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Pretty good
So,
manual bookkeeping.
Every trade we made, I tracked. Every all the yearly finishes and all the rookie draft picks, I tracked them all. So it was pretty. I found it. And I was like going through. I texted the group first, and then I tweeted out. I was like, I can tweet this out. This is just fun.
Yep.
Going back, I think the first year now it's like 2004, 2005 in the book, even. So pretty interesting. So before going to our next guys, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Fast Draft Dynasty. Our Dynasty Nerds fam, you got to check these guys out. They continue to grow. Now the benefits, because they're growing, are even better. If you haven't jumped in yet, Fast Draft is that lightning fast best ball platform where drafts take under 5 minutes to complete. Their rookie-only tournaments are in full swing right now. I've done 6 of them. It's a good time. I feel like every week I like my team a little bit better and better because of it as I like maneuver my board, because you have to maneuver your board and set your rankings ahead of time, because sometimes if you're waiting and you miss and you blink, the draft's over. It's a perfect way to put your Dynasty nerds like knowledge to like work out for you right now from all this stuff that we've been talking about. And Origins draft right now is already 70% full. So don't wait too long if you want to miss out on that. Get in on the action, drafting these rookies before the NFL draft even takes place. If you use a promo code NERDS when you sign up at Fast Draft, will now match your first deposit 100% up to $50. That's double from our previous offer. Plus, non-members who deposit at least $10 and enter a contest will receive a free premium Nerd Herd and Dynasty GM bundle. So all you have to do is deposit $10, play in a contest, and we're going to give you access to the film room, the Nerd Score Plus.
Normally $70, Rich.
Yeah, the bonus podcast, the Dynasty GM, which is the best Dynasty tool in the market. I promise you, download it, check it out. And if you're already a Nerd Herd member, don't worry. We're going to send you a Dynasty Nerds t-shirt. You're going to walk around, get a ton of high fives, and you're going to look sexier than you've ever looked. So download the Fast Draft app or go to draftfaster.com and draft faster. Win bigger with the code NERDS. Let's continue dominating these rookie drafts together. Promo codes and t-shirts forms will be sent out week-to-week basis. Get in there, dominate, use promo code NERDS, get some free stuff, win some money, all fun around.
During the roster rescue show today, I had somebody say, Garrett, I took advantage of what you talked about on FFPC. I just took over 2 orphans.
Nice.
Here's the guys that I have, and like asking questions about them. So we have nerds that are going over there, taking advantage of these offers right now.
So, somebody bought 70 teams.
70?
70.
70.
70. I found that out today.
Holy cow.
Whoever you are listening, kudos to you.
Dude, baller.
Woo.
Absolute
He's going to be so rich.
baller. Dude, head over to the roster rescue. Let's review some of those teams. So the nice part is if you head over to myffpc.com, use promo code NERDS, we're going to give you a nice little $25 to head towards your league fee. They also just started up $100 Dynasty startup. So it's kind of that nice in between where it's like, it's not the $35 kind of like puny little thing, but it's not like, hey, I can't quite afford the $2,500 entry.
Yeah.
You got a nice little in between there.
And with that promo code NERDS, it's only $75.
Now it's only $75. You already have a leg up on the competition. So head over there, use promo code NERDS at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Do not wait, because the orphans, the $100 leagues, all of those filling up very quickly.
Go quick. And again, 25% off. That's nice. You get into a league. $25 25%
Yeah.
discount.
You or
Win it
join
all.
a $35 league. It's for $10. Like
Even better.
even if I suck, like it was $10.
$10 is $10. You know?
Come on, man.
All right. Who's next on the list?
All right, moving on. The next person up is Jaylin Noel, Iowa State wide receiver, 5'10" and a quarter, 194 pounds, 8 3/4 inch
So he's had
hands.
a long week.
It has really been tough on me. He ran a 4.39 at the 40. He had a 1.51 10-yard split. At the 20-yard shuttle, he ran a 4.17. Really, really good.
All his numbers are
in
amazing.
the 3-cone, 6.82. He had a 134-inch broad jump, 23 bench press reps, and a 41.5-inch vertical. So this dude did everything, and he crushed them all.
11 feet 2 inches.
Crushed
at
them.
5'10". 6.823 cone.
23 bench reps at 194 pounds?
Dude.
That's nuts.
That is insane.
Benching 225 pounds.
For a wide receiver, too. That is strong.
Real quick.
If you think those combine numbers are fun, turn on the tape.
Well, real quick, I figured out who that comp was. Isaiah Hodgins. That's who I was thinking.
Oh, yeah. He did look really, like, he was always a tease. Those last 4 games.
Yes.
And you don't want to know why, because everybody was hurt for the Giants by then. I mean, but to be fair to him.
That's like the low-end comp.
And he capitalized in his moments.
He did.
It's like,
he was a jump ball specialist.
And then they tagged him like whatever tag.
Yeah,
he had some mini like Gabe Davis hype right at the end of every season. Like,
you're right.
It's like he's gonna do it.
Could be. This could be his year. But anyway, let's get back to the guy that we were talking about.
All right, hold on. I'm not done. I got to give the stats. In 14 games last year, he had 80 receptions, 1,194 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns, 9 rush attempts, 38 yards. He did that 119 targets. He only had 4 drops for 5% drop rate. He had 337 yards after the catch.
So with his teammate, we just discussed his teammate, Jayden Higgins. With Noel, it was really interesting because while I left, like, still thinking, like, oh, this is a good player, but, like, I don't feel like I have to get shares of this guy. Noel, I was like, I got to walk away with some shares of this kid because I love the way that this kid plays football. I don't know as far as true consistent game speed. I don't know that I've seen a player that does it better than him.
I 100% agree.
Like the
nonstop rabbit mode on your lawnmower, full go, nonstop.
Yes. Dude, it's absolute truth. Like, and even like when he varied speed, it was like, okay, I'm going from 9.5 back to 10. Like, it was just like, it had to be exhausting trying to cover the. It reminded me of like prime Russell Westbrook when he's just sprinting down the floor constantly. You're like, bro, I gotta take out a game. I gotta catch my breath. This dude is just like, oh my gosh. But he ran all of his routes that way. And he still ran good routes. It's not like he didn't have good movement on his routes. He just did it so fast that I just couldn't believe it. Very much so out of control or in control the entire time. Had some nice yards after catch. Does a little bit in the punt return game. Has the good long speed. He ran in the 4.3s. So his straight line speed is good. He is just, if you want a player like this, he looks like a Miami Dolphin to me. Like just one of those players that teams that value that true difference making speed. He has it, but that's the fun part with him is it's not just the linear speed.
He can change directions without losing speed.
Exactly.
Which is very rare.
He's got some good twitch to him.
Yep.
Really good twitch.
Like he's got like, you know, like when he's running, he's got a little Devon Achane to him.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. Now, for his hands, a little inconsistent. There are times where you would see some really nice catches. There are other times like, you probably shouldn't have dropped that one. So it was a little hot and cold, a little bit hit and miss. Not the biggest contested catch guy, although there were times that you saw some contested catches and he could do it, but he just plays so fast that he wasn't put in many of those situations.
I think the contested catch thing, I think if there was like serious contact, I think he had a hard time catching that. But, but anything that's just like normal.
Yeah, they've got a hand here, but
Yes.
like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all kind of, everyone's got a different version of what contested catch is when they see, you know what I mean?
Right.
When they're looking at a game, but like the serious stuff, I think he struggled with. So I agree with you there. But any normal contact, he was fine. He was working through that.
Absolutely.
He's gritty.
I didn't give him a great release score just because I think he was so fast and in the slot. I don't remember a rep where anybody tried to press him. So I didn't get a good gauge of his release, but you saw the movement skills and he played with enough physicality that I'm guessing he would be fine. But he seems like a strict slot guy at the next level. So which is fine in today's NFL. 100%.
He was 70% in the slot, and I do think that's kind of what he probably is.
Yeah.
You'll take a slot over a Z any day of the week.
Yeah.
But he could be a Z. I think he could be a Z.
He's got the speed to do it without a doubt. So I walked away overall as like, if I'm at the point in my draft where like, I'm not worried about floor, though actually I think he has an okay floor, but I'm at the point where, we're past those first like pick or two in the second round where I'm like, okay, where's my ceiling at? this is the ceiling guy. Like there's some big plays to be made with Jaylen Noel.
Yeah, and the nice thing about him, you get a guy that's 5'10", 194 pounds. You see that he runs a 4.39. You kind of start assuming things like, oh, he might just be a go long type of guy in the NFL, something like that. But he's not that. He runs all over the place. He runs he can attack any level of the defense and be fine with that. So he is exciting. I think you mentioned his hands is kind of inconsistent, but I think it's there because he catches the ball away from his body
naturally.
You know what I mean? So it's natural. It's like a concentration drop.
It's the Energizer Bunny. I'm doing 18 more things before I forgot to reel in the pass.
Exactly. So I don't know that it's a real big issue with his hands, but I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? As far as that stuff goes, obviously we mentioned some of the crazy numbers, and his vertical jump is one of those crazy numbers, but he's not. He's another guy that's not going to be up in the air. He's not an above the rim guy, even though he has the jumps and the hops to do that. That still doesn't seem like it's not one of his strong, like it's not some part of his game. So I feel like a little bit like the Energizer Bunny myself right now, but
what to do with my hands?
But I just don't know what to do. But I like this guy a lot. He is an exciting player, which is why I'm getting a little bit amped up. So he was refreshing. You know what I mean? Like from going from a guy like Luther Burden, who's got all the talent and movement skills, but doesn't show it on tape or ever run it 100%, to see a guy like this was a very kind of breath of fresh air. Round wise, as far as the NFL draft, I would expect him to go in the second round. Is that what you guys are feeling?
I think late second, maybe early third at the latest.
Somewhere around there.
But yeah, especially with his punt return ability too, like being able to do multiple things for a team does elevate you a little bit.
This kind of speed just doesn't come around that often. That's why I'm thinking he might get bumped up.
Play speed, like that's the thing. Like it was crazy. I forgot to mention 74.68. So he's wide receiver 7 for me right now on my Nerd Square.
73.77 for me. So
okay, so pretty close.
So pretty close, yeah.
Pow.
Pow, pow.
That's Jaylen Noel, man. I mean, I probably had the most fun watching his tape. I couldn't get enough of it. And he's at like I said at the beginning of the show, where like I have this tier and it's so big. He's at the very top of that tier. He leads it up. He ended up being my wide receiver 4 on upside. Wow. I have him ahead of Matthew Golden. I have ahead of Luther Burden because of the upside. And you're right, his play speed. I don't know if I've ever seen a player that does it like him. I mean, his short area burst is ridiculous. I mean, he's just shaking defensive backs like on their heels. And like you said, he keeps them huffing as well. Like the way he accelerates out of his stems is a thing of beauty. I mean, he's just uncovering everywhere he goes, all over the field. And he can play all 3 levels of the field. And everything he did it at full, like you said, like what you know like about Luther Burden. And Luther Burden had his kind of mindset and energy. Like Luther Burden might be wide receiver 1 in this class. Like that, that
could be
that good. Because Luther Burden's hands are so good, and Luther Burden's so much more physical in the open field, where Jaylen Noel's not as physical, but very gritty player. And you mentioned his return value. The biggest thing for me is you mentioned like the drops. Every game I watched him though, and this is where he ended up like, I had a hard time with him because I really liked him a lot. But every game I watched, he had at least one ball go off of his hands. And there's a couple games I watched where he had 2 ball goes off, and then I saw one game 3. I think it was the first game I watched it. 3 balls went off his hands. They did get a little bit better. So, but you mentioned like what's crazy is despite that, I saw him make up some great over the shoulder catches in full speed.
Yep.
I saw him catch the ball away from his frame, full hands a lot. Like he made some really nice catches in motion, like in full speed motion for him. So his hands are really confusing to me.
While we're talking about this, since we just did Jayden Higgins and now we're doing Jaylen Noel, the quarterback play there, I think flashed brilliance at times, but was inconsistent. So that might account for a little bit of this, where the balls weren't always right where they were supposed to be. There were times when it looked perfect and beautiful, like you said, just kind of dropping one in over his shoulder and stuff like that.
Like the New Mexico quarterback.
But there were times when it was a little rough as well. So I looked him up. He was like I think he's a sophomore or something, like first year starter type of guy. So that can account for a little bit of the inconsistencies Because the ball placement wasn't necessarily always in the same place.
And he's got smaller hands, so it kind of shows some of that. So his catch radius won't be as good. But like I said, it was just real weird because like you would see him make catches. You're like, wow, that was a great catch. I love seeing receivers. I mentioned before where you look for receivers like would lay hands and then catch the ball away from their frame, right? Because not everything's gonna be on the numbers. Like away from, he did it. And I love ball players like he tracked the ball well, and he would make really nice over shoulder catches multiple times. I saw. Really nice player. If he goes in the second round, I think if he goes in the second round, he's staying as my wide receiver 4. If he makes it in the second round, and
I could see him getting that high for me as well.
And I honestly wouldn't even care if like again, it's real tough because like Luther Burden is somebody that has such high upside. It's 100%. That mental part of it. Like I said, I mean, his ceiling's so high. I think I was talking to Angelo. Saying like, yeah, the problem is like his ceiling's so high, but his floor is the basement. Talking about Luther Burden, like
I mean, he could be Kadarius Toney. You know what I mean? Like,
100%. Who's a first round pick, right? So for me, when I got Jaylen Noel, it's like you hear about like Matthew Golden getting first round buzz. It's like, dude, I would take Jaylen Nolan over Matthew Golden.
Speaking of, didn't Golden get invited to the combine as well?
Oh, to the draft itself.
I mean, the draft.
Yep,
definitely to the combine.
I remember him there distinctly.
He is.
So overall, I mean, I think his combine was you saw those numbers pop, and then you put on the tape. It's there.
Samesies.
If I was going to say there's 2 players that you want to watch tape in and have a good time in this draft, it's Travis Hunter and Jaylen Noel. Those are the players, like, if you want to sit down and have a good time and get hyped up about drafting a player, these are the players. And that hype was good enough to me, again, because the ceiling, I think, is so high there, and he's got a little twitch. Like, he could end up being, like, a Tyreek Hill kind of player. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he could be. He's got that little twitch to his game, too. So, if he ended up being someone, because remember, Tyreek Hill wasn't he was, what, third round pick?
He was a running back that switched. I think he actually ended up being
4th or 5th
round pick.
Now, he's way more jacked. You know
sure.
what I mean? Everything.
Yeah, he was
like,
a running back that converted.
But still, and he's extremely fast. But I mean, there's something there where I'm real excited with Jaylen Noel's game. And I think his upside outweighs everybody else's tape I watched while you end up as wide receiver 4.
Yep.
Interesting player for sure. All right, moving on. Tai Felton, Maryland wide receiver, 6'1" and 1/8, 183 pounds, 9-inch hands. He's 22 years old. He just turned 22. At the combine, he ran a 4.37 in the 40, 1.51 10-yard split. He had a 130-inch broad jump and a 39.5-inch vertical. Whew. Last year at Maryland, in 12 games, he had 96 receptions, 1,124 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. He had 2 rush attempts for 23 yards. He did that on 143 targets. He had 8 drops for an 8% drop rate. And yards after the catch were 590.
A lot of targets.
A lot of targets.
Oh, this is me.
Yeah.
You started on Jaylen now. Okay. So when I look at Felton, it's weird because like I see so many of these receivers, right? These linear receivers, tall guys, super skinny. What do they do well? Go. Run the post, run the go, get out there. And to me, like it seems like his floor is pretty safe with him for what he does because like he's a solid receiver.
He's a true Z, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Z receiver. Like he's gonna struggle at times versus press. He needs to put on a little bit of weight.
Agreed.
But like his open field speed, it pops, man. Like saw a ton of targets, worked with it, did a good job with the targets he got.
In a good conference of the Big Ten, it wasn't like he played at a small school.
Exactly. I thought he did a really good tracking the ball, some really nice over-the-shoulder catches as well there. So, like, a really solid true receiver. You mentioned he had, like, the 8% drop rate. I wasn't overly concerned with his drops. Just a little – defensive backs can have – these are the kind of players you're like, oh, how do they acclimate to NFL defensive backs, right? Like, can he take that next step? Because if not, he's the kind of player at the same time – a good defensive back could just take him completely out of the game. But like overall, like I could see him being like a nice dynasty wide receiver 4 on your roster and be okay with that. Nice little stash with some upside, fast guy, tall, got the speed. Wish he'd put on a little bit of weight. But besides that, like nothing special, but on the board.
Agreed that he's nothing special. I think he's just got okay routes.
I thought he was very limited routes.
That's what I mean. Just okay. But is like you mentioned, his speed pops. The second you put on the tape, you see it. He's got a third gear that guys just don't have. Not a lot of guys. I think his hands are fine. I don't think there's anything special there. There were 8 drops. I don't necessarily think I saw him like egregiously drop a bunch of passes, but he wasn't making fantastic catches either. So I think, the contested catches, I don't think he's going to ever be great at that. I just don't think he's got the play skill for it or the play strength for it. So, with the ball in his hands, I think he's okay, which is he could juke some guys out and make some things happen, which, it's a nice thing to have. But for fantasy, he's a Z, he's a slight framed Z that's going to be asked to probably take the top off the defense quite a bit. And for me, that doesn't equate to great fantasy success. I think, he might be a best ball type of guy, but if you have him in your regular leagues, he's going to be a hard guy to start or figure out when you're going to start him.
Let's take the top off.
Jaylin Hyatt.
He actually reminds me a lot of his game of Darius Slayton. That's who he kind of reminds me of.
Well, you like Darius Slayton.
I do like Darius Slayton. I will always like Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
I thought about comping the Darius Slayton as well.
I think Slayton's got better ball skills, especially in
maybe,
traffic.
but he struggles with a lot of drops too.
But in traffic, I feel like he come down with the ball.
Maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
And he's had more time to put on some weight and things like that.
He's a more overall finished wide receiver than
Yeah.
But Ty's young enough where he could turn into a Darius Slayton.
The thing I did like about
Darius took a little while.
The thing I liked about Felton is his fluidity looked like an NFL receiver. Like you watch certain guys and you're like, does that work at the next level? Like the herky jerk, like I'm gonna make you, and then I'm gonna get open. Okay, you got open, but how long did it take you to do that?
26 steps.
Right. Like there's certain things like that where just like everything with him was fast and fluid. And so like it was those kinds of things that I was like, there could be something here. I'm not banking my house on it, but like if I'm looking for a dart throw receiver, like sure.
He's on my board. He's at the bottom.
Yeah.
Same thing.
You could do worse
5th
than
round,
a 4.37 guy that is decent.
But you're right. He's more than likely a best ball type of guy. He's going to get you 6 to 7 touchdowns a year on 450 to 550 receiving yards. Helps an NFL team more than he helps your fantasy team. But somebody has to fill in on your bye weeks.
And you hope you put him on your taxi squad, 5th round rookie pick. You hope, just like where Darius Slayton was, you hope he turns into like Darius Slayton, so you can put him on your roster, hangs on the bottom of the roster. Sometimes you can put him in your lineup if he pans out right. If not, you cut bait.
And if you turn him into a 3rd round pick later on because somebody needed somebody on a bye week, now you just profited 2 rounds. Like those are the kind of guys that I like to maximize injuries, bye weeks. You just came off a big game or two. Hey, 3rd round pick, fill in your roster, bada bing, bada boom.
Yep.
All
right, last guy on the list, Kyle Williams, Washington State wide receiver, 5'10" and 5/8, 190 pounds, 8 3/4 inch hands. He's 22 years old. He'll be 23 in November. At the combine, he ran a 4.4 flat, 1.55 10-yard split. He had a 119-inch broad jump, 36 and a half inch.
Whoa.
36 is sexy and a half-inch vertical. In 13 games last year, he had 70 receptions, 1,198 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns, 9 rush attempts, 57 yards. He did that on 101 targets, and he had 5 drops for a 7% drop rate, 590 yards after catch. So pretty good.
Yeah, Kyle Williams, a name that we actually didn't originally have on our sheets. Started hearing a little bit more buzz about him, and there was just a lot of like no-name kind of receivers that we were just trying to fill in and get as many of them as we can. And he didn't make our initial cut, but the more I heard about him and how high some people had him, I was like, hey, let's make sure we get him on the list. So we updated the list. He got in, he made it, and I'm glad we did. I think he is definitely, it's funny how my nerd score kind of worked out, where I have about 10 to 15 guys that got a score of 69 or below, but there were no 70s and no 71s. And so it was either 69 or below or 72 and up. And it was like, I'm interested in these guys. I'm not interested in these guys. They made it very clear for me on this. So he ended up with a 73.7. So he's definitely in the range of guys like, hey, I'm interested. But similar to the last guy we talked about, he is a true Z.
Yep.
Like he's more of a take the top off the defense kind of guy. His hands were hit and miss. He did struggle with drops. He did a little better this year than he did in the season before. So you like seeing that he improved upon his drop rate and things like that. not much of a contested catch guy. The one thing I'll say that he has different than Felton is there's much more yard after the catch ability naturally in his game with his movement skills than Felton had. So that's why I think he's a slightly better player, a slightly more intriguing prospect to me than Felton, but he's still another guy that he's got a fine skill set, but it's nothing special. You know, when people talk about him as one of the top 5 guys in the class, I don't see that, but I understand why people are excited about him.
No, I agree. I think he's a good route runner. I think he knows how to like leverage a DB and kind of, you know, maximize that kind of stuff, really get into their body before breaking off, into his route. And obviously the speed is there, 4.4 flat, and that shows up, I think, on tape. So that's always good to see. I don't think he had an issue getting off the line or anything like that. He's quickly able.
Actually gave him an 8 on releases, pretty good.
He's able to stack those DBs pretty quickly, which is nice. And run after the catch, I thought he was pretty strong. He was able to shed some guys. You know, he's not the biggest guy at 5'10" and 190 pounds, but I think he does pretty well.
That's where I liked him most.
As far as, you know, being able to physically break some tackles and
a lot of effort there too,
maximizing the yard. Which is nice. That's good to see.
He knew exactly, like he was just smooth with he got the ball, and the moment he got the ball, he knew exactly where to go with it.
So to me, he's an interesting guy. I think, you know, he is for sure a Z. That's his position. So it's going to, you know, boil down to, for me, like what kind of offense he lands in, what kind of opportunity he's going to get to really determine whether or not how good he can be. Because I think he's good enough at a lot of things. But if he's across from a CeeDee Lamb, I'm a little less. You know what I mean? I'm a little less excited. If he's somewhere where he's got an opportunity to kind of carve out a bigger role, I'm a little bit more excited about him.
Yeah, he was a nice watch. I liked him. I got the hype, like you said. It made sense. You know, could be a vertical threat. Good feet. Thought he tracked the ball well. Real smooth runner. Like you mentioned, like fluidity on Felton. Like he's a real smooth runner. Really know how to work in between like multiple defensive backs. And again, when he got the ball, he knew exactly where to go. Thought he had good footwork. Could turn like those really short dump off throws they saw like on in the flat and turn them into good plays. Like you mentioned, his hands are the biggest. You know, that's his biggest knock.
I didn't really see the issue with the hands personally.
He dropped some balls.
I saw a couple drops this year, but I was looking through some of that. The year before, he had quite a bit and so I went back and watched one of his games that PFF will tell you which games he had the drops in and stuff. So I went back and watched that game, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's why I missed it then, because it wasn't
horrendous, but like like I said, his routes, like he's one of the guys who could drift his routes, and it's just you have to be a little bit more nitpicky with these guys. He's the 5th-year senior, right? Mm-hmm. So you expect to have you expect him to be as tight as could be, and there's still some things you're like, oh, he needs to work on that, and like he needs to tighten up that route a little bit. Your footwork could be off a little bit there. And again, his hands weren't horrible, but like they weren't great. They weren't bad though. They were just a little. Maybe it's just a tape I watched. Just a couple balls go off the hands. Same thing. I mean, they're better than Jaylen Knowles, and I love Jaylen Knowles, so that'll tell you something.
Sure.
But overall, like a nice player, But the thing with him though is like in most years, like, okay, is this wide receiver 15 in like most years, or is he like? Because right now he's like wide receiver 15 for me, like right, maybe not that low. He's right around. No, he's higher than that because I have him right. He's in the same tier as Jalen Royals, and I like Jalen Royals.
Right.
And
oh wow.
And
I'm surprised by that because I have Jalen Royals like bordering on my top 5.
I think I'd need to go rewatch.
Dude, 100%. When I got done with all my tape and I put Kyle Williams in here because I didn't know where. Like I have Kyle Williams right around like Jordan, like right behind. I
have him tied with Jayden Higgins, but you like Higgins a little bit.
So yeah, I have Higgins higher. I have. Here's the thing. I have Kyle Williams in that same tier, like as Jaylen Noel, but Jaylen Noel's at the top, and Kyle Williams is. So Jalen Rose is the receiver I have ahead of him, but he's about 4 players behind him. He's in that Damian Martinez range.
Okay.
For me, Jalen Rose. But I'm with you. Like when I got all said and done, I was like, man, I remember like really Jalen Royals a lot. He's a player I have to go back and watch again to get a little bit more.
Because it was like we went with a few good players in that first one to total doo-doo butter to now liking a lot of these guys, I feel like I kind of need a refresher course to see exactly where Royals stacks with these guys.
Sure.
I remember coming away liking his tape a lot.
Yeah.
And I have my notes. All my notes are good on him too. But it's like, again, overall class-wise, like, and that's why I said, like, do I really need to go back? Because I feel real good about this tier. An NFL draft and Capital is going to really shake out this tier. So, like, I have them ranked in order, but that tier has never been closer. And like you mentioned, you have the guys that are like, I saw your grades, 73.37, 73.39. It's like literally 0.0203 off there.
That's
so,
very, very close.
like how I started the show, I'm going to end the show. I haven't seen a class like this close when you get past those like top 6 guys ever. Like it's just, wow. Like, almost like tight ends, Dynasty tight ends. Like, oh, what's the difference between 8 and 15? Not much.
Absolutely
Not
nothing.
much. So
Absolutely.
we got 6 more guys to go. Some more really good names to mention here. Go through. Matthew Golden's going to lead up the show tomorrow, so tune in tomorrow for that. Make sure to check out our partners, Fast Draft, to get a free year of Dynasty. Remember, if you sign up for Fast Draft right now, put $10 and you sign up for the Nerd Herd now, you get a free year. That's going to get you all the way through to next year's draft. The film room, the Dynasty GM. We got some. I'm telling you too, we have some really good stuff coming out this summer. It's 2025 is probably going to be the biggest step forward for Dynasty Nerds in a long time for what we're going to give our users. A part of that Nerd Herd membership. Like we have the rookie guide coming out in about a week, which you're going to get for free if you're in the Nerd Herd. We got a data hub coming out soon. We got some games coming soon. Like there's we keep advancing the Dynasty GM. If you had it from day one, you see how much it's advanced. But we have some really big steps coming.
Nerd Score Plus coming out right after the draft. That'll help a lot clear up some of these things.
So it's a good time to get in there. Check out Dynasty Nerds. For the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can get it. Or you can just do, like, we always have these rare promos. We don't run these often. But we have a partner that we believe in, and they're willing to cover your cost of your membership by trying out their app because they believe in it so much. And Fast Draft can do that for you right now for $10, as long as you use the promo code NERDS and get a draft. But I'm excited to get in tomorrow, break down the final 6 receivers. I can see the finish line.
6.
The NFL draft will be here before we know it.
I can't wait, man. That draft is going to be awesome, man. Adios.